Now, the first configuration of this crossover unit is a three-way stereo, which means we have the left channel and the right channel. Now, to continue, I put this FX processor on top of a screen, which is a digital mixing desk X32 from Behringer. And we will be using this screen to visualize what is happening on the output of this processor. Again, this will be our input knob, and the signal that I'm going to send here will be pink noise and some sort of music. And we have this crossover frequency for the low mid, crossover frequency for the high mid, and the three knobs which will be used for the volume of master out. Again, this knob will be for the low frequency output, mid frequency output, and high frequency output. Now, I'm going to send pink noise on this FX processor. Now, the pink noise came in to the FX processor, but we cannot see any signal shown on the RTA. That is because the volume knobs on the output is still on the minimum. Let's see the subwoofer. Let's see the mid. And let's see the high. That will be the sound coming from these three knobs. And correspondingly, these three knobs controls the three XLR output at the rear. Now, we have these two knobs here, which is the actual crossover frequency. And what this does is to set the frequency for the crossover between the low mid and this knob for the crossover frequency between mid and high. Now, to understand it better, let's imagine that we put this knob right here, which is on top of the low output and mid output. And same wise, this knob on top of the mid output and high output, which will be right here. So basically, let's put these two knobs right here. One here and one in here. Right now, let's see what it does to the actual output. I'm going to turn on the output for the low frequency, which is the subwoofer. Now, what I'm going to do is I will switch this on and adjust this crossover frequency. Right now, the crossover frequency is set at around probably 110 Hz. You see, the output of subwoofer increases its frequency whenever I adjust this one. And let's see what happens to the mid whenever I adjust this knob. This will be the mid. And let's compare the output of these two. Again, I'm going to turn the knob of the subwoofer up and on the mid. And let's compare the two. And if I'm going to take the sum, we still have a very good balanced signal across the low and mid region. Now, on the mid and high output section, let's see what this knob does to the outputs. For the meantime, I'm going to turn up the volume of subwoofer and switch on the mid. I'm going to turn up the pink noise and see what this does to the output section of the mid, which will be on the higher frequency. Remember, only the high portion of the mid frequency is affected. And let's see what it does to the high frequency. And to compare what's happening to the output between the mid and high, I'm going to switch on the pink noise and compare the mid and high. Now, let's take the summation of these three outputs, the low, mid, and the high. In my experience, I normally set the frequency at around probably 110 Hz for the low mid and maybe around 3.5 kilohertz between the mid and high. And let's see what it sounds like. There is a balance signal across the frequency. And 20 Hz up to 20 kHz, you can see what is the speed and information selected. Now, if you have noticed, we have here this low cut button, and what this does is it cuts the frequency around 40 Hz. Let's try it. Now, we have these three buttons right here, which is the phase inverter. And what this does is it inverts the phase, the polarity, which is 180 degrees inverted. Now I'm going to turn the pink noise on again and see what it does. For now, I'm going to switch on the polarity inverter for the mid. You see that whenever you invert the polarity, it actually subtracts within the crossover region between the low-mid and mid-high. Now, let's invert the phase of this subwoofer. The output of subwoofer is subtracted with the mid. And last but not the least, we have the inverter here for the high. Now I'm going to play music and let's see what it does on the actual scene.
Teka lang, naiistorbo ako. Tumaan lang ang ngiti mo, nadistrong ka. Sumunod na naman.
Now, last but not the least is remember that we have the button at the rear of this panel, which is multiplier for the crossover frequency. Now I switch it on and let's see what it does to the signal. For now, I'm going to switch off this mid and high output and keep only the subwoofer output. I'm going to switch on the pink noise. If you can remember, we set the crossover frequency at 110 Hz. But since I switch on the button at the rear panel, it multiplies this crossover frequency by 10 times, which results to 110 times 10 is 1.1 kilohertz. Now, I will run the pink noise continuously and switch on and off the button at the back. Around 110. Around 1.1 kilohertz. Now, that button is also applicable to the mid. Since we only have this single knob here which affects the low and mid, let's see what it does to the signal. Now we are looking at the sub and I'm switching on and off the button at the back. Now let's see the output on the mid. I hope this video makes it clear for you to understand the purpose of this processing effects. Now, the second configuration for this crossover unit is the two-way stereo, which means we still have the left channel and the right channel. But now, we only have two outputs per channel, which is the subwoofer output, and the other output is the summation of mid and high. It means we are not going to use the output from this knob, which is the middle XLR at the rear panel. Let's see what it does. I'm going to run pink noise. as you can see, the output of the subwoofer is the same as that of the three-way stereo. The only change is the output on this knob, which is now the summation of mid and high. And now, the crossover frequency for this low and mid-high is controlled by this knob. And of course, there is no output on the mid output. Again, this two-way stereo configuration is the output of this subwoofer and summation of mid and high. And again, we have the crossover frequency multiplier at the rear panel, and let's see what it does. I'm going to run pink noise and switch on the sub. And now I'm going to switch on and off the multiplier at the rear panel. Now let's see the output of the sub and mid-high independently. I'm going to switch on the button at the rear panel. Again, high and sub. And of course, the summation of both. Now, the last but not the least configuration of this crossover unit is the four-way mono configuration. Remember that we only have 6 outputs from this crossover, which is the low, mid-high on the left channel, and again low, mid-high on the right channel, which means we only have 6 outputs in total. And if we want a 4 outputs with different frequency regions, we can only have a 1 channel mono output. In this crossover unit, we have 6 outputs, and we are not going to use the high from the left channel and the sub on the right channel. It means we will be using only the 4 outputs, which will be controlled by this knob for the sub, by this knob for the low mid, by this knob for the high mid, and this knob for the high. And again, we have 4 channel regions, and in this case, we should need a 3 crossover points. Again, we have the low, low mid, high mid, and high. It means we need 3 crossover regions, which will be placed here, here, and here. Now, the crossover knob between the low and low mid will be this guy right here. And the crossover knob for the low mid and high mid will be this guy right here. And the crossover knob between the high mid and the high, which will be placed here, will be this knob. Now, let's run pink noise and see what it does to the output signal in summation. I'm going to switch off all the outputs, run the pink noise, and see what happens. Low output, low mid, high mid, and lastly the high. And let's see the summation of these four outputs. You can see that it is still balanced within the whole region from 20 Hz to 20 kHz. Now, let's see what this crossover knob does to the output signal. For now, let's use the crossover frequency for the low and low mid. Now, the only active output will be the low and low mid. Let's see the output. Now, the crossover knob for the low mid and the high mid. This will be for the low mid and this will be for the high mid. Let's switch on the pink noise. And last but not the least, the crossover point for the mid and high. For the highs, and as you can see, the output when we sum these four outputs is still balanced. And again, that bottom on the rear panel, which will be multiplier by 10 for this knob, for this crossover frequency between the low and low mid, can be used during mono configuration. And I hope you learned from this video a lot. Thanks for watching out, guys.